I've known Russ pretty much ever since I've been clean. We have about the same amount of clean time.
How much time you got?
About 6 years and 7.5 months.
I got 6 years, 5 months on the 14th.
Yeah, see, I know.
Wow.
So me and Russ, like I watched him. I've been watching him grow through this thing as I grow, and it's nice to have people that started the journey, around the same time as you, right? So you can watch that growth, and what I really like. This podcast is brought to you by our friends at Sorensen's Ace Hardware, located at 402 Washington Avenue in Los Banos, proudly serving the community since 1947. Please check out our friend at Sorensen's for all your hardware needs. Come on, guys, support those who support us. Thanks, Sorensen's.
Not so anonymous with the... No, I can't do it. Not so anonymous with EJ Areca.
Wow.
Well, how about, am I allowed to interrupt you?
Yeah, go for it.
How about watching the growth and the people that don't fucking grow?
Yeah.
That are, where are they at? They're gone.
Yeah,
gone,
they're usually not hanging around where we hang around much longer, right?
Yeah.
It's either grow or go, right? And so, like, one thing that always attracted me to Russ and what I always liked about Russ is his passion for recovery, right? He's always excited to see you. He's happy to be there, right? Like somebody told me early on, he shares a lot and says, thank God we're not all fucked up on the same day, right?
Yeah,
so when you go into a room and you're not feeling so good, and then somebody brings that energy, it's really nice. So this is Russ, yeah. So we'll start off. Oh, go ahead.
Well, am I supposed to be looking at you?
Yeah, you can look at me. You can look at the camera.
Look around. Look at the dry rot. That's right.
Yeah. So, what's your clean date, Russ?
Oh, what is September 14th, 2016.
And so, what does that clean date mean to you?
Okay, well, because like God showed up on the 12th of September, but I didn't realize that, right? I didn't realize that something bigger was out there. And so on the 12th, it came in my head. I was where I was living. I was standing out front, and I was looking, and I was like, I have to change something. Like something really has to change. But how many times have we felt that in our am I close enough?
Yeah.
In our drinking, drug using careers, and thought, oh, you need to stop, right? But then as soon as we got over whatever our issue was, maybe we were hungover, maybe we were too fucking high, maybe we were too drunk, who knows? And then it went away. Oh, it's going to be fine. It wasn't that bad. Well, when that came over me that it's time for me to change something, I said, well, I'm going to sleep on it and see how I feel tomorrow. Right? And I'm missing Mondays and Fridays at work all the time, right? Things are bad. And that next day it was still there, right? So I made some phone calls. I got everything set up so that I was going to go to rehab, but I got drunk all the way until I went to that rehab. So what does that mean? That's the day everything changed. That's as far as drinking goes, because I still got problems. There's no doubt. But that was the day it changed, and I got into the program with everything I had. Right. And so that's the day that I got some freedom. I got some liberation from drugs and alcohol.
Nice. And so, sorry, I'm just watching somebody walk up the door. We're closed. So with that said, like, what was life like, growing up for you? What were the early years like for Russ? Like,
well, how far do we want to go back? Okay, my mom didn't have a dad. Left my dad. My mom left my dad when I was 5 in Missouri. We don't want to get all that. But my mom is an addict today, right? Still is an addict. She's had 2 strokes. She's in a home, right? High in the home. The lady. This is a good story. That we're down there seeing her. My sister makes me go see her because sometimes you just got to write people off. And the lady goes, "Your mom is doing so good." And I go, "What medication do you have her on?" And they go, "Oh, I'm not at liberty to tell you." I go, "Yeah, because she's high. That's why she's not fucking with you. If she was high, if she wasn't high, she wouldn't deal with you. She wouldn't be cool." But anyway, so what was it like? No consequences. I had grandparents that took care of me. You know what I mean? They did all my homework for me. My grandma did all my homework. My first ex-wife, I graduated high school because she did all my homework. I had no consequences. I pretty much did whatever I wanted, got away with everything. You know what I mean? Not just, Even, later on in my career, when I was working for the state, it's just slaps on the hand. Don't do that no more. You can't do that anymore. So not a lot of consequences. But my mom was a drinker. I didn't have rules. You know what I mean? My mom used drugs. She was one of the biggest drug dealers in
Sorensen's also has a Modesto location located at 1433 Coffee Road. Modesto, true value for all your hardware needs. For all of our people out in the Modesto area, please support those who support us. Thank you.
Tracy at that time when I was 12. I'm 47 now. And I didn't have rules. I just kind of did whatever I wanted. You know what I mean? I lived with my sister growing up. No rules there. Started smoking weed when I was 11, right? And then 29 years later, I had to go get sober somewhere, right? So what was it? Did I not fit in? I don't know. You know what I mean? I was just kind of whatever, just whatever. And just started using at a young age, right? Because the first thing I did was weed. Then a buddy, we were doing acid, we were doing shrooms, we were, doing all that stuff. And drinking, as well. But when you're 11, it's kind of harder to get booze. At 11, 12, 13, you can get drugs all you need, right? It's not like you have to go to a store and buy them. And so what was it? Fuck, I don't know. Yeah. Life was just, you know what I mean? Good thing I had some structure with my grandparents, or who knows where the fuck I'd be.
So it was like, you grew up, mom was an addict, dad wasn't around, raised by grandparents, so you were pretty much a feral kid.
Yes.
Doing whatever you wanted to do,
yes,
right?
Yeah. And being co-signed.
Right.
All my stuff was co-signed, you know what I mean? They'd just be like, no, he's okay, or let's help him through this, let's help him through that, you know what I mean? All the time.
And so would you say, because you do have a charismatic personality, right? Mm-hmm. Was that what carried you through life up until the point where things got so bad that you had to change? Because you mentioned, right, you got through high school, right? You obviously manipulation was a big part of your story early on.
Right.
Ex-wife.
Whether I knew it or not.
Right. Well, these are just, a lot of people, a lot of people talk about us being manipulators and liars, but these are survival skills that we learned out there and we honed them just to get through life, right? So manipulating, all that stuff was just the norm.
Sure.
And so you touched a little bit on your early childhood, being raised by your grandparents into high school, right? Where using started becoming an option for you, right? Would you say
maybe even a necessity for me?
Or a necessity.
Yeah,
at
right.
That point.
Right.
So, you started.
I went to school every day on Saturday too, because I was in trouble. Fucking Saturday school all the fucking time.
Because you were such a good kid, you wanted extra credit, right? So you went to school every Saturday.
Yeah.
And so
I remember doing acid one weekend on a Friday. And I remember watching a snowboarding tournament on the window, right? I was up all night. I don't even know how I dealt with it. And then I had to walk to Saturday school in the morning. I thought, what the hell, man? That's crazy. That's a crazy drug right there. Anyway.
So that's what high school looked like for you? Just basically using like a garbage can,
yes,
right? Just took anything that came
yes,
in.
Yes.
And so, and then you graduated high school?
I graduated from continuation school, Duncan Russell High School, because I got kicked out of the regular high school for not showing up enough, always being in trouble. What is that thing? When we don't like authority? Whatever the hell it's called, but you know what I'm talking about. I didn't like authority.
You were defiant.
Yes, I wouldn't listen to nobody. No, ain't gonna happen.
So then you go through. So all the signs are there, right? Well, this is going on. I don't know if you can even remember what your mindset was back then, but did you think that you were different from all the other kids? You may have a problem, or was just the way things were and the way that you liked them?
Yeah, I don't know that I thought I was different. And even in recovery, I don't look back and go, I was different, I didn't fit in. Because maybe I still don't fit in today, you know what I mean? Maybe I beat to a different drum, right? And so maybe there's an inner thing that it took me till now to actually go look for, right? So maybe it was just some inner thing, or maybe because it's genetic too, right? It's genetic addiction.
A lot of people believe so.
Some, what's that story? Those two twins that were born, right? And one of them, I won't drink because I watch my dad and my mom, and the other one I will drink because I watched my dad and my mom, you know, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But my dad died heroin addict, right? He was a functioning contractor, carpenter, you know what I mean? Womanizer, right? Which is another issue that I have to fucking work on too, because that's fucking got to be genetic too. His mom died and he fucking went to heroin, right? Boom. My mom, you know, so I don't know. I really don't know. But I do know that I found something better. And I listened to a lady named Abraham Hicks, right? And she talks about, and she didn't pay me to say that, you guys. She doesn't even know who I am. She talks about believing in something bigger than us.
Yeah.
And then someone was saying to her, okay, so you just believe in something that you're not sure is there. And she goes, yeah, because it makes me feel good, and that is my drug of choice. And I went, boom, right? Like, boom. But you said something else about, and it was period, because I was defining whatever, and you said period, exclamation point. But what the hell were you talking about?
I don't even remember. I'm hung up on this thing. Like we're talking about, you know, the disease of addiction or alcoholism, however you want to put it,
Right.
being genetic, right? And in the literature, it talks about it doesn't matter how or why you got here. It only
Right.
matters about, you know, what you want to do about your problem, right? But also, like, I keep coming back to this thing, not so much the disease being hereditary, but the trauma that's passed on by using and drinking, you know, that causes people to believe that using or drinking may be the solution to their problem, right? Not feeling, right?
Right.
The trauma that's passed on from a dad not being there, being a heroin addict, a mom being absent, right? I always go back to that, right? Because I don't know, I'm not a scientist.
Right.
You know, I don't know.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it doesn't really fucking matter.
No.
All that matters is what I want to do about my problem and what I'm doing today to correct these behaviors, right? That I found normal, right?
Yes.
The insanity. So let's go back to Russ, right? Because you're the topic today. Is
Okay,
Russ.
back
This
to
is all
Russ.
about Russ.
Russ.
So
Fucking Russ.
yeah, because you know, 6.5 years and 6 years and 7 months clean aren't gonna solve the problem of addiction
Right.
in America. We're not gonna do that, right? There's people that've been around a lot longer than us that are still asking. My sponsor always says, well, you know, if you figure it out, let me know.
Yeah.
Right? You know, so but so at the end of the day, like, we're getting through high school and you talked about getting a state job.
Yeah.
Right? So like life seems to be manageable for us at this point, right? Like you're checking all the boxes, even though you're doing all this extracurricular stuff. You're watching snowboarding tournaments on your windows. You're smoking weed.
Yeah.
You're manipulating. But you're getting through, right? You're
Yes.
getting by.
Yes.
And then that leads past high school and then into a career, right? You
Yep.
get a state job.
Yeah.
And so, like, what does that look like for you? Like, what's your life like at that point?
Well, like I was in the Conservation Corps, right? Because I got in trouble for 2 counts of resist and battery on a peace officer, right? I was supposed to go in the Conservation Corps. Anyway, so I got out of it, 2 felonies. I got out of them, ended up going.
What is the conservation?
It's the California Conservation Corps is a state program, and it's, what is it? It's rough conditions, low pay, etc. Right? We're making $4.25 an hour doing all this different stuff. But I got an internship with Caltrans when I was there. Once again, Russ is different. Russ doesn't have to follow the rules. Russ does whatever he wants. Russ gets fired, right? You're not supposed to come back. But since I met a guy, Bill Basinger, when I was in the Conservation Corps, he got my job back for me, right? So another no consequences. Is that going to be a problem, you think?
No, it's all right. Just lay it over the bottom shelf. Yeah, I've seen it. It'll black out all of that.
So it's going to be another situation of no consequences, right? Like lost that job, and you can't come back. But this guy I met told the district director, if you don't hire him back, then we're going to never contract anything to you guys again, right? Like, what? He can't do that. Anyway, so I got my job back. So I get this state job. I'm 21 years old. I get this state job, get back together with my high school sweetheart, right? End up having a kid, buying a house, and here I am working for the state of California, 21 years old, right? No consequences, right? Barely got a fucking high school education, Go in an interview, well, like someone already wrote my ticket for me, right? So everything was good. Like from that point on, I drank every single day, like period. So things were good. Life was good. Got 2 letters in my first 6 months of employment work with the state, right? Like I should have been fired. By the time I was done working for the state, I had 86 letters in my file. And I was like, why do I even still work here? Like, and then I got fired 4 months sober. So I got sober, lose that job. Because God said, no, you're not doing this anymore. But things were good. Things were good, right? Except for Russ does what Russ wants all the time. Like Russ, no matter what, I do what I want. You know what I mean? When I have to learn about peace of mind, right? Like peace of mind is a big thing, EJ. And do you want peace of mind in your life?
Oh, of course.
And I do too, but I would never give peace of mind to other people.
Right.
So that's something in recovery that I try and work on.
Yeah, and so like breaking all myths, right? It's impossible to get fired by the state, people say. Living proof.
It's pretty fucking hard, but I'll tell you though, because I saw the light, I saw it happening, because I couldn't believe it that I still worked there. I mean, I would tell bosses, and we were traveling to get fucked. I mean, I would do out of control shit. You know what I mean? Like I was on leave restriction, and I had to have a letter from a doctor's note if I was 1 minute late. But they wouldn't fire me. They would take pay from me, like 5% for 6 months. Or they'd go, we're going to take 5% for 10 months. And I'd go, no. And I'd go to the union, and they'd come, and then we'd get like 3% for 5. But anyway, yeah, I would get away with all this stuff. And then I watched this other guy who's a great friend of mine who actually got me into recovery, who saved my life, right? Like he found the place I went because I called him for help, right? And his brother got in trouble, got fired for hearsay, for someone saying he said something. 2 people. This guy said I said this and got fired. I thought, what? Like what? How does that happen? Because that never happened for me. I got away with, it was bad, EJ. I mean, I don't even know why.
So like all the way up until like, because obviously you had this job for a little while when you were sober, but like before you had gotten sober, like all these things were happening, right? Like in your life, did you ever start thinking, your life was unmanageable? Before that, December, or was it September 12th?
Yeah.
Like, would you just go through life and things would happen to you? You would be using, drinking, doing whatever you're doing. At any time, was it like, man, I got a fucking problem until that day on your porch? I mean, was it?
Everything, it seemed like everything, EJ, just fell the way it was going to fall. Right? Get divorced, right? Give all that stuff away. I'm going to have to pay this child support. And then another woman comes in my life, and then marry her. Just, you know what I mean? Like I just kept making it. And okay, how could you be? And I kept getting promoted. They'd keep promoting me through all this shit. I got a dirty drug test working for the state. I don't even know. I was going to go to work for DWR, right? And I was out of class supervisor in Tracy. And they already said Russ is leaving, all this stuff, right? I go interview. I smoke weed 22 days prior to that drug test. I'm already leaving, already got offered the job, right? And then the guy calls me back and says, hey, we got to take back everything we offered you. And I said, well, why? He goes, you failed your drug test. I said, what? Like, what am I going to do? He goes, I don't know. You're not working for me, though. But I already work for the state. So 6 months later, I heard something about it. I never lost my job. Nothing ever happened. I thought, what the fuck? I can't, what am I going to do? Like, I can't get in trouble. Like, it was too much. So I probably went around ego to the max that you guys can't even touch me. But like I was saying before, how many times have we been in a predicament, right? And been like, I got charged for a hate crime in Manteca. Right? When I promoted, third time I promoted to come down here to Los Banos. And it just so happened that same man that helped me out getting that state job, his uncle was a fucking judge in Lodi, where I got charged for the hate crime. and I got away with the whole thing. So all these things would just happen in my favor. I mean, even though I would go through some garbage, some shit, some adversity, I would still come out unscathed.
Right.
So, and our book talks about, I'm not going to say where the book's from, but it talks about if there's still a little fun to be had, you're not going to stop. Right? And I would just keep getting away. I blacked out. I blacked out. I remember I got hit in the face with vegetation and it woke me up. And I was all shaved on my face. I was like, what the fuck? And then everything went nutbag, right? And I got arrested. I said, what the fuck did I get arrested for? I don't even remember nothing. And it was a hate crime and it was awful. I got away with it though. So there might have been a few times when I was like, I really need to stop doing this. You know what I mean? I couldn't be faithful to any of my wives. Always get away with fucking everything. But then something else would just show up and I'd be okay.
Yeah.
So maybe I never hit that bottom enough when I should have. Well, when I went to jail 17 and a half for those 2 felony counts of resisting battery on a peace officer, maybe that should have opened my eyes, but it didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't. Got out, got drunk, did it all again. Girlfriend came and saved me, came and picked me up.
And I think that's a story for a lot of us. I can relate to a lot of that. Even though I'm crumbling, the circumstances around me keep me buoyant.
Yep.
Right? And so I just keep on keeping on until something jarring enough happens in my life to where I can't look away anymore, right?
Right.
And we touched, before when I asked you, what your clean date means to you, you touched on the pivot point, right? What that looked like for Russ. So, what leading up to that day, what were the events that led you to standing on that porch, making that decision where, man, I just can't do this no more?
I remember, because I was still working for the state, and I was making decent money, right? And I had a roommate, and I was only paying part of the rent, and I would be out of money all the time, right? Because it would be okay, let's go have a drink, and then end up drinking everything and going to the bar and so it was I was living on overdraft, right? Because you'd go pull out a bunch of money, get that fee, and then pay it back at the when you got paid. And so it just got to it was I knew it was time, but I just wasn't ready. You know what I mean? And the neighbor at that time he's a great man, still is today. And we get along well now. But at that time, I was just a nuisance. You know what I mean? I was just, I should have brought that picture when because 9 months before I got sober, I went to jail, right? And I have a mug shot. And it was just a disaster, man. It was just a disaster. And I remember telling myself, this is a train wreck, man, and something's going to happen. But I'd keep getting away with shit, you know what I mean? I'd miss Mondays and Fridays, and nothing would happen. I'd just keep, and so it was coming, but it was a matter of it clicking in my head that you really need to do something.
Right.
You really need to do something. And it's that little change or that one thing that we take out of our life which changes our whole life. Right? And so when I was able to take the booze out of my life, my whole life changed. Is it beautiful all the time? Fuck no. But did it change? Yeah, guaranteed. The 12 steps will change your fucking life, period.
Right. So your journey like a lot of us starts off with a treatment facility, right?
If you're lucky, there's people that don't even have that option.
Yeah.
And commend them.
Right.
Right?
The people that go to the rooms, get clean and stay clean.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because for me, it was a treatment facility too, right? So what does Russ look like walking into that treatment facility? You know what I'm saying? I want to know what day one Russ is thinking and looks like. What does that picture look like? Can you paint it for me?
So, guy named Paul Cruz. Okay, my buddy Matt Conley sent a guy that worked for the state, his lead worker, down to my house. They're from Stockton, down to my house to pick me up in a Caltrans truck, which is not fucking normal procedure. I don't think I've ever seen it happen before. Because you know I'm special, don't you?
Yes, you are special, Russ.
Especially. And
Talking to the mic.
so I'm drinking Kessler, right? I go see my doctor. 171 to 198 or 171 is my blood pressure. Today, it was earlier this morning, it was 110/70. Write that down. I drink, he drops me off, right? My Gramps is there, right? Who's my guy to pay for this facility. $800 a month, right? Food was about to expire. Had a big book, had a 12x12, had a book called Living Sober. So anyway, you ever seen that movie Tin Cup?
Yeah.
Okay, and when he drops that last fucking putt, right? Excuse me, and he goes, right? So when I took that last drink, but I left some in there. I took that last drink and I said, I'm done. Like, this is time. And fucking. So I went in there and I watched these people, the other people that were in this rehab. And they wouldn't get up. They'd lay around all day. You know, we had 5 meetings a day, right? And I was worried about this detox, right? Because I don't know if when you got cleaned up, if you were like, fuck, am I going to die from the detox, right? Because how many times have we heard that? And people talking about, well, they die, you know? They'd say, what they say, to come off opiates or benzos, or, remember the psychiatrist going to tell you about that. Are you allergic to opiates? I'm a recovered alcoholic addict, bitch. I don't want any opiate. Anyway, benzos or booze, you can die, right? So I was nervous, but I didn't have a bad detox. You know what I mean? Because I believe that God showed up, the universe showed up, higher power, whatever you want to call it, showed up and said, you're done, dude. Like, you're done. And so, was I scared? Could I not sleep? Did I cry myself to sleep? Yeah, I was scared. You know what I mean? It was a different place. You're with different people. You got guys walking around in the middle of the night. You know what I mean? But within 2-3 days, they had a tractor out there and they had a bunch of property, and I was just kind of doing my thing, you know what I mean? And I was working, and I would just stay outside and work and cut down trees, and I almost dropped a tree on a building out there. But it was cool, you know what I mean? And things were changing, and things were getting better. But to watch the other people, and some of those people are still in that rehab today because they can't, you know what I mean? They can't function. And so what it looked like, to be honest, man, it looked bright. You know what I mean? There was hope. There was like something here is going to be different. Like, I'm going to be able to change something, right? And the first thing I had to change was the drinking, right? Like, I had to get that out of the way. And then the rest is going to show up. But I'll remind you this. My grandfather who got me there, right, 94-year-old man, he was 22 days. I was 22 days in rehab, and I got a phone call from my mother that he was in the hospital and he wasn't doing good. And I said, well, how long has he been in the hospital? It was 22 days sober, right? Like, I have a hard time making 22 days without calling somebody. You know what I mean? Like, so that's really not very long. And she goes, well, I didn't want to tell you because I was afraid you would relapse. And of course, I got all pissed off about that. I'm not going to relapse, right? But he wasn't just in a hospital. He was in fucking hospice. And I was like, what? Like, what? Like, people don't go to hospice unless they're dying. But so I got a pass to go down there and see him. And he died 8 hours after I was there. But he knew I was there. You know what I mean? And so there was just hope. You know, EJ, I really felt a sense of ease when I walked in there. You know what I mean? I felt like this is where I'm supposed to be. I felt like things are going to be better. I felt like that's where I'm supposed to be. Like you know where at step 10 it says we cease fighting anybody and everything? Well, I ceased fighting the alcohol at that point, right? I still fight all kinds of shit. all kinds of shit today. Like, oh, just let it go. Just cease fighting everything. But that's where I was supposed to be, man. So I think that I saw hope, man. I just saw a better way of life, a more of a peace of mind.
You probably felt like you could drop that backpack you've been carrying
Yeah.
since the time you were 11 years old, right?
Yeah. And it was like,
Right.
you know, like, and yeah. So it wasn't really, you know, and some people, which is crummy, you know, like you haven't seen these people in your family in so long. Well, when someone dies and everyone gets together and it's like, hey, great, this is great, but it's a sad time. But the people that came together to get me to that point was amazing, man. You know what I mean? It was tremendous. The people that came together to get me to that point.
So like within your first 22 days or your first month, right? You had your first big, no matter what moment too, right?
Yes.
Losing your father figure.
Mm-hmm.
So was that like a pivotal point for you to where like, man, I went through this and I stayed clean or stayed sober. I could probably get through anything.
Like 100%. But I was so ready at that time of my journey and getting sober. And I would just sit there and read the big book. I didn't know what it said.
Yeah.
I didn't even get it.
How could you understand all those big words?
Yeah, no idea. But as you look into it more, they all mean the same fucking thing. He just says it over and over and over. You're like, well, it means the same thing. And play solitaire. So I don't, because of where I was in my recovery, and I was so, there was hope, and I was so into it. And he was 94. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like he was a great man, and like.
But like even with all that, somebody so early in recovery can use any fucking excuse to get loaded, right? Like it could be like, I couldn't tie my fucking shoes this morning, I'm gonna go get loaded, right? And then to have something that big happen, I mean, if you're gonna have any excuse to go back, that's it, right? At that point.
I feel like it would be harder for me today at 6 years, 5 months than it was at 22 days.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's just, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was an amazing thing, and I made it through that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I was like, fuck, dude, like I can make it through hell of shit like this guy. But I was also in a place where like he was 94.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This guy lived an amazing life. You know, him and my grandma are some of the most amazing people ever. And I'm a real quick story. My grandpa had a orange tree in his front yard, right? And he would leave Christmas lights on it, and they put fans on it. Like he was all about this orange tree. And pick all the oranges, and I'd have to go down there and pick all the oranges off this tree, right? And so I was at a friend of mine's house at a crab feed last weekend, a week before last weekend anyway. They had an orange tree. And so I'm picking these oranges off this tree, and it's reminded me of my grandpa's orange tree, right? So I posted an orange on Facebook, right, about this orange fresh off the tree. And my cousin's ex-wife posted on there, I bet that reminds you of your grandparents. And I said, yeah, 100%. And then I text her off of there, and I said, hey, those were your grandparents too, because she was around them, and those were some of the best people I've ever met in my life. Like when they were talking about you got to find a higher power, my grandpa's right here all the time.
Right.
Like all the time, because he'd always tell me, just think good thoughts, Russ. You'll be okay, fella. You know what I mean? Even though I'd be pissed off at me all the time. You know what I mean? And so, what was the question you asked me?
We were talking about that first, no matter what moment, and then you went into that story.
Oh, the story on the orange tree. Yeah, but anyway, so I don't know, man. Like things happen the way they happen.
Yeah. And so, how long were you at that treatment facility?
58 days.
58 days.
It was 60 days is what I went for.
But you were special.
No, well, I don't know if I was special, but I believe the man. I believe the man that opened that facility did something to me to piss me off. To you got to go. It's time for you to go. You know what I mean? Like I think I was provoked because I was like, I'm gonna kill this guy. But I was so scared to leave. I was so, fuck. You know, that's a safe place. You know what I mean? And but it was time, man. It was time, and I had a plan, and I got a sponsor, and I got in the book, and I did the work, and I still, do meetings today, on Monday nights. But
so what does that look like? Because I know that's a crazy, from my experience, I was in treatment for 6 months, right?
Yeah.
And then coming out of that program out into normal life, right? Like, first of all, I thought I had, fucking graduated graduated Notre Dame or something.
Yeah, I'm done.
Right?
Yeah.
Like normal people don't give a shit that you just, hey, good for you, guy. You're fucking 37 years old. You just graduated rehab. Way to fucking go, right? But I
Right.
thought I'd really accomplished something.
Well, and you did.
Which I did, right?
Yes.
But so like, what is that? Because that's a scary phase, going from treatment back out to the normal world. So like, what is that little transition phase? Like, what did you do to set yourself up to stay sober?
So, like, period, right? Because we're recovering alcoholic addicts, right?
Right.
And that is a graduation. That is a big milestone.
Oh, it's huge.
But to average Joes,
Yeah.
no.
No.
And most people aren't going to go, hey, EJ, you're doing great, bud. Because humans aren't like that. They're fucking assholes. But anyway, so I received a motorhome. And so I had this motorhome because my grandpa passed away, right? And so I was like, I have to leave. They said, you have to change. You have to leave. So where I was living, they were drinking, right? So I got in that motorhome. And I left. And I went and lived in it. In the trailer park. And I just, because I wasn't working yet. And I'd inherited some money. And then I ended up buying a modular home, a trailer house, whatever. And I just took care of what I had to do, right? Like my anxiety levels were so high. And I just go to meetings, right? I didn't have to work at that time. I just go to meetings. And when I was crazy in my head, I would just read the book. I wouldn't even know what I was reading. I was just sitting where I was safe, right? And I was just doing my thing, and I was taking care of my boy. And my first sponsor, because I had no job at that time, right? Because I lost that job, right? Hold on, how'd that work? 4 months sober, I lost that job. I lost that career 4 months sober, so I must have stayed for a while then where I was, and then I moved over there. And so I had to get on aid, right, to make it. And then I ended up opening a little business, but I just kind of focused on what was in the book, just taking care of myself, not getting in any relationships, just like my anxieties were so high, EJ, like it was crippling, because I was in that rehab for 58 days. Like that was nothing compared to the 29 years that I just, did whatever I wanted. And then once again, everything just fell together like it was supposed to. You know what I mean? Like still, there's no consequences still, but I just stayed busy. You know what I mean? Like I used to tell the guys I sponsor, like, look, when you start feeling however you're feeling, do whatever you can right now where you're at. If that means that you vacuum the house, or you dust the house, or you do laundry, or wash the window on your truck, or something. You know what I mean? Because if I just sit up in here, that's where I'm going to have a problem. So I just stayed busy, man, and took care of my boy and did all that, and things are good. Things were good.
I still do the same shit today.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
You
sit
have
on
to.
my hands. Right? And so like when you went back when you got out and you went into the rooms, did you go in there like I'm Russ, I'm clean, blah 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 blah, this is me, or were you like in the back of the room where because you talk about your anxiety issues, right? So like, what did that process? Were you in there like, hey man, I'm Russ, I need some help? Or like, what did that look like for you?
Well, this one lady, and if you ever talk to her, she'll tell you that I walked in and both doors open. I'm here. Here I am, right?
I can see it.
And so I'm a little more humble today.
What an ass.
Yeah, I'm a little more humble today. But yeah, it was like that. Like I had it lined up with, no, I wasn't humble and I need help. I was fucking, here I am, and this is what's up, and listen to what everyone's saying, right? Until I had to really figure out who
I got
I
60 days clean. Let me tell you how
Let
it
me
is.
tell you how you're supposed to fucking do it, right? And then one sponsor I had, and he took me through the steps, and boom, 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 and then I got a different sponsor, and then another sponsor. But in the meantime, like I would go a lot of places, and I would always be reading that book, right? And one day I came across where it says, and this is step 3, and I go, what the fuck? How come none of my sponsors told me this? that it tells me where the steps are in this book, right? Because, like, you know what I mean? Like, no one took me through the book like I would take someone through the book. And so I would study that book at home at my kitchen table. You know what I mean? But that was a year and a half sober before I even got in the big book like that. You know what I mean? I was just running on, I'm here I am. You know what I mean? And all this different stuff happening. And today it's just way different. Like, at 47 years old, it came a time where I have to, you know, and find out what's really going on. A lot of people helped me that I didn't even know about. They were asking me to share at early recovery, right? I remember walking into Recovery Central one time, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to share about, right? So what's that thing? You picture everybody naked?
Yeah.
So I was up there, and okay, this is Russ, right? And so I'm looking around the room, you know, and they're looking at me like, what? And I said, well, they told me if I'm nervous, just picture everybody naked. So I was checking you guys out. And they're like, Jesus Christ, Russ. But no, very arrogant, very prideful, very ego-driven. And it can still show up, but most people don't bite into it anymore. You know what I mean? Like, Russ, you've been doing this long enough that you need to carry a different message.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, what is recovery, like, what's going on with you today, right? Like, what does your recovery process look like today?
Drinking's not an option, right?
Right.
Drinking and using is not an option. And as far as the using goes, I worked for the state of California for 20 years, since I was 21. I like drugs, right? Meth, I don't know, until I was, anyway. But I'm sure I'd have used a lot more drugs in my life if I didn't have that state job, you know what I mean, that drug test me on a regular. But what's it look like today? Prayer, like every morning before my feet hit the ground, you know, I thank God for another day clean and sober. Please give me the strength and courage to continue on and help me to slow down and smell the roses. I don't always have to have something to say to people. You know what I mean? It's not my business what other people do if I'm not affected. You asked me what my recovery was today, right?
What's going on with you today?
You asking me to do this. You know, I was sharing up in Turlock a couple days ago. Drinking's not an option, right? So everything on that is okay, but just because I don't drink or use anything doesn't mean that I don't have other fucking issues. You know what I mean? And these 12 steps will help us with any issue we have. It's just a matter of if I want to put it into practice. And today that's what I do, to the best of my ability. I mean, not always. You know, sometimes I got to, you know, sit on shit and stew on it a little bit longer than others. But for the most part, I'm in my head, I'm thinking, okay, Russ, how much are you bullshitting right now? Like, how much are you bullshitting about how your recovery is? Well, it's number one. Right. Like, it has to be number one. I mean, I have a relationship with my boy's mother and her new husband and their daughter. It's amazing. With my daughter, my granddaughter, her mom. You know, the things that have come from it that are so changing and so amazing, like, I can't forget that, right? Because they say don't forget your last drunk, because it's not your last one or your last whatever, you know what I mean? Okay, but I got to remember too all these wonderful things that have happened that could be really minor things, but they're amazing things, right? And so it's about not causing more wreckage for me, you know, because I can cause more wreckage. I can say the wrong things, you know. I can text the wrong stuff. But really, if let's talk about step 11, okay? Step 11 in the book I work out of says that as we say it more times throughout the day, thy will be done, is what it says to say, right? We're in a lot less danger, which we're not free and clear, but we're in a lot less danger of excitement, right? Which could be anything, EJ, right? Any kind of excitement. Oh, any kind of excitement. Bad, good, whatever. And then it says a couple other things, and it says foolish decisions, right? So I'm very familiar with excitement and foolish decisions. So I can't do that anymore. You know what I mean? So it tells me if I say thy will be done, right? Or I take time to go, smell the roses, that it's going to be okay. So I'm not going to cause more wreckage. So I'm not going to sit here and bullshit you and tell you that everything's fucking wonderful, but really everything's wonderful. I mean, if I look back at what it was like in here, yeah, it's wonderful.
Was that shift of perspective, right? Like being able to recognize the small things in life and how amazing those things are, whether it's doing something with your kid or whether it's accomplishing a new task, right? Things that we used to take for granted, that now our eyes are open, right? And now these things are the big things in life, right? And then like talking about thy will be done, right? Keeping in conscious contact with your higher power, right? Including the God of your understanding, and these decisions you're making through the day allows your life to be a lot less complicated.
Right.
And so, you know, is there anything? So you were talking about earlier, right, about seeking outside help, right, and what that looked like for you, and you were just describing a situation, right?
Yeah.
And you said you wanted to talk about it. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Right.
So you made a decision to seek outside help outside of the program,
Right,
for some things that you were dealing with.
right.
What's going on with that?
Well, that's funny because the book talks about outside help, right? Okay. And so I went, okay, so my first question was, what's the difference between a therapist and a psychiatrist? And they go, a psychiatrist could prescribe drugs. And I thought, okay, whatever. So I talked to a therapist, right? And she was cool. She goes, hey, like this is an inside thing. Like you have to work on it for yourself. You have, okay, cool. But then the guy was like, it's probably easier to see a psychiatrist because she's not so far booked out. So I see this psychiatrist, right? And she's all, what happened when you were younger and you got kicked out of school and this, that, and the other. So we go over all this stuff, right, that leads up to, because she's a psychiatrist, right? And I'm not discarding psychiatrists because they've all been to school, they've all done their thing. But she talks about prescribing drugs to me, right? And I says, I'm a recovered alcoholic addict. Like, I don't want any of that. She says, okay, well, we'll talk about that later. So we go on about more and more, and then she says, well, I think that you're ADHD. That's because you can't finish tasks. And I go, yeah, I can. I said, I did 3 jobs today, finished them all. Like she's like already like, it's like she had this great answer for what I was, right? And so I told her about taking Ativan for years for anxiety. She goes, oh, that's just a Band-Aid. I said, okay. Because I don't take it anymore because I started step 11 and started praying on a regular. And so she goes, okay, well, what I think is that you're ADHD, but are you allergic to opiates? And I looked at her and I went, did you not hear what I just told you? Like, I don't want opiates. I don't want any of that. Well, what about maybe you need some for depression so you can sleep at night? I'm like, no, I don't want none of that. Like, I'm okay. If I can't go to sleep, I'll run one out. It'll be okay, right? And so anyway, so I go, look, like I go, if you're telling me that, and I was cool about it, EJ, I really was. I mean, I'm sure my face looked like shit, but I go, if you're telling me that this Ativan was a Band-Aid, I go, how much school did you go to just throw pills at me? Like, I don't want that. She goes, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to send you to a deal, and they're going to actually do whatever they do to find out if you're ADHD or whatever you are. But Earl Hightower, this is what he says. It's alcoholism, man. That's what it is. But anyway, I'm not discounting drugs and, prescribed that way. And so she was done talking to me. Like, she was like, I'm done with you. That's all I mean. And I said, I think I need to see a therapist. She goes, yeah. And I already have one lined up. And so, yeah, you were talking about perspective. I got to get a different perspective on the things I do in recovery, which aren't always
above board.
Yes, above board. Yeah, that's the perfect way, above board. Yeah. So, but I was against outside help for years. No one's going to tell me, you know what I mean? And the thing is, too, that a lot of people told me was that first one you get's not going to be the one.
Right.
Like, you're going to have to, probably have a couple. But I got turned on to a therapist by another guy who's in recovery, who's a drug and alcohol counselor. And he said, you need to talk to this person. And yeah, there's nothing against outside help.
Yeah.
There's really not.
Well, and there's, you know, because there's something to be said. There's nobody. The therapeutic value of one addict helping another, right?
Right.
Can get us through where we need to go, right?
Right,
But
yep.
then again, there is outside help because there's bigger issues, and there are some people that do need medication to make sure
Yep.
that they don't kill themselves or they deal with, you know, bipolar issues,
Mm-hmm.
and so there's all sorts of things, right? But thank God you have the clarity today to understand when somebody's just trying to push pills on you rather than help you, right? So
Yeah.
there's many different approaches to this thing, right? But there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing to substitute the therapeutic value of one addict helping another to get clean or get sober,
Yes.
right?
Period.
Period. And as we progress on this journey, we may find that we do need outside help, right? And so you know, before like ending this thing, I always like to ask, like, is there something that you would tell somebody out there that may be seeing this, that's struggling with alcoholism or addiction? You know, like, is there something that you would tell somebody like that as the fire truck drives by?
Hey,
Help.
firefighter.
Help is on the way.
You know, yeah, real quick. I don't discount needing, you know, maybe that medication. You know, there's people that do need it. You know, and don't think that, because I still have some anxiety stuff, you know, without a doubt. And don't think that I didn't go,
Oh yeah.
ooh, baby. But then I went, no. Like, no, Russ. Like, don't, bro. Like, try to do everything you can holistically or through a therapist before you do that.
Right.
So if there was anything that I could say to somebody having a problem, right? My book says that we go after this thing like a drowning man, a life preserver, right? And in my addiction in alcoholism, I was drowning, right? Like I was drowning. There's no doubt about it. And until I hit that certain...
Sorry, Russ. Try talking to the mic.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Until I hit that certain spot, I couldn't go after it like a drowning man, a life preserver, because that's a big to-do, right? You're in the middle of an ocean somewhere, right? You're going to go 10 feet to get to that life preserver. You're going to do it. So, and then it talks about, guy talks about if we go after this thing with half the zeal we did when it came to getting a drink, your Heavenly Father will never let you down. So I think if nothing else, when we start doing it, or we're scared to come in, or we don't know what people are going to say, and we don't know what to think, and we're embarrassed to go in there, like, just know that everybody went through that. All of us had to walk in there that first day. All of us had to feel uncomfortable. Like, we got to get uncomfortable, get comfortable. But this is the finest, most effective, life-changing program on earth. Any 12-step program is. And it'll change your life. And so, will it change your life for the better? Maybe not right away. But I guarantee it'll change your life. And so, if I had anything to fucking say that was just profound, right? Nothing. Just give it everything you got, and when you can't give it anymore, you better fucking dig down and give it some more. And you'll make it. Like, you'll make it. There's not a doubt in my mind. With anything, like you were talking earlier, we practice these principles in all of our affairs, right? With anything in our life. But the first thing that we had to do to quit drinking and or using, I got a hair in my nose or something. The first thing we had to do to quit drinking and or using is quit drinking and or using, right? So once we take that away, right, and we fight through it until the obsession goes, then we're going to be okay. So I don't have nothing profound. I really fucking don't. EJ, just follow the people that are in the rooms that are doing it, which might take a minute to figure out who's real and who's not, but and do the steps, and your life will change. That's all there is to it. It's that simple, right?
Yeah, pretty simple.
Yeah, but
Simple program for complicated
yeah,
people.
very, very complicated. And I highly suggest if anybody, and trust me, I didn't follow this at all, at fucking all. because it doesn't say it in the book I read. I don't know if it says in yours, but it talks about not being in relationships for a year and making big decisions. It talks about not being in relationships for a year and making big decisions. That's probably a good idea to really not do that. The good idea is to focus on yourself and leave the women alone, or vice versa. If you're whatever, you know what I'm saying.
Well, a guy told me that had like 40 years clean. He's like, you can't get in relationships in the first year. He's like, but you can have as much sex as you want.
Right.
You just can't have sex with anybody else but yourself.
right. And fucking right now, I'm steady with myself because that's where I need to be. Yeah, because right now I'm steady with myself because that's where I need to be. You know what I mean? It's mine. I'll touch it if I want to, as much as I want to. Because I got other fucking problems, you know what I mean? And so here we are seeking therapy and just working and doing my thing. And things are, I mean, quit drinking 6 years, 5 months, right? I was sharing up in Turlock, right? And I was like, I straight up with these people. I said, this is what 6 years, 4 months looks like. Looks all great on the outside, but my inside still shambles. You know what I mean? This is a continuous process, and just fucking continue with it.
Just keep it moving.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's perfect. And so before we close out too, I want to shout out to our people out in Morocco. We love you too, right? We got a message from some people in Morocco that are listening to this.
Right on. What's up, Morocco?
How wild. So you always end with a hug, so you owe me a hug.
Okay, you got it, bud. We gonna hug Jesse too?
Yeah, we can hug him too. Oh God.
Do you have your own business or anything?
No, I do R&M Cuts Plus is it's a landscape.
I'll cut it. Go ahead and just say whatever you.
It's a landscape company I opened up, but I just keep the business permit because I do basically handyman work now, and I just work under that permit. But I still take care of the yard at United Methodist. Well, it's R&M Cuts Plus is what it is. That's just the name of it. But R&M Kuts. But I quit doing the landscaping. I'd like to do handyman stuff. But like I said, I work under that permit. And so my phone number.
Do you want to promote it?
Yeah, 209-675-2239.
There it is.
Right on, Jesse. We got to hug you, though, bro.